Okay, so we'll start now. Thank you for joining us. Welcome all. We'll start by quickly introduce ourselves. My name is Venla Harja. I work as a project researcher in this project, and with me is Aino Ahvo. Hello, who is a researcher in this project as well. And now we'll start by explaining quickly like the technical basics of this page. So if you have any technical problems, you can start by telling about that in the chat section here on the right side of the page. And then if you need some real support, you can also, like on the left side of the screen, there's these icons, and on the bottom there's tech support icon. By clicking that, then you will be out of this session, but you will get some technical support straight away. And then, so we'll work on this, or I'll start by introducing our topic. So I'll share the screen. I actually thought I will share this one page that maybe you have noticed you have received earlier yesterday. And so this session will be about governance, and in particular about marine protection efforts and governance issues related to that, and marine protection areas as well. And as we all know, governance is something that determines the grounds for protection. And but it's also, as a term, it's quite like broad and complex. And in this session, we're trying to find out more about your views about it and build something like understanding around this subject together. And the UN Environmental Programme outlines environmental governance as the policies, rules, and norms that govern human behavior in relation to the environment. And governance also includes agreement how decisions are to be carried out and by whom, as well as how and who is held accountable for that. And the perception of good, efficient governance or governance processes can differ, sometimes significantly, among stakeholders. So this is the reason it's good to discuss this more at the beginning of this project together. And the key questions for the session are: how do you participants view governance? What are important building blocks for good governance, and what does a good governance process look like? Also, we are going to discuss about views on strengths and weaknesses of current marine protection area governance systems, so MPA, marine protected areas. And then we are going to also discuss, if there were no restrictions, how could we improve MPA governance, marine protection area governance? And now I'll explain the agenda of this session quickly. I'll share you my Miro screen. I have sent you earlier through the chat a link to a Miro board where you can see the questions and all the these different tools with which we are going to work today. And now I'll share my screen so you can see the Miro board. So I'll first explain like these questions, and then we can talk about the functions of this board. Maybe like many of you have already know this platform very well, but in case somebody has worked with this one before, we'll talk about that. So during this intro, we are going to talk about who we are here in the session, sort of works as an introduction. And then after that, we have 4 questions that are trying to establish a common baseline concerning marine protection areas and governance. And then after that, we have more questions which we are trying to scope improved governance. So how would we improve the existing situation? And after that, we'll have a short summary of this section. And yes, and now let's see. So in the session, sort of as an expectation management slot here, I'll just explain that I hope everyone will actively participate in this section, in the session, and so we can create like a picture of this like marine protection area governance landscape, and hopefully we will have lively discussions and learn something new. And we work on those with those post-it and post-it notes and voting stickers mainly. But if you find somebody has already written something on some notes, doesn't matter if your note is about a similar subject. So the application of input, it's not a problem. And I will give you time with certain time with every task, and then I will like give a warning, maybe like 1 minute or 30 seconds before the task ends. And now I will share some information about this session. Just a second. Sorry about the timing. So there was supposed to be quite many more participants in the session, but when the sign-in was going on, there were about like 83 participants. Now there's a bit less than that, but people come from different backgrounds, representing different kind of sectors. Quite a big, large section or sector is like scientific and research institutes, as well as national and international authority or ministries, education, and so on. And I think we can now move on. So I'll quickly introduce the Miro board. So hopefully you have found these questions or where we are going to work. Looks like there are already quite many people on the board. And so on the right side bottom, you can find these plus and minus signs where you can make these pictures or text larger or like smaller, and then you can move around the board just like in a normal screen by using your mouse and so on. And then we use a lot of these post-it notes, and they are grouped into different kind of sectors. There's and you can choose which sector you want to represent. And we actually start with this number 1 question, which is who is here? Has everybody found this question? Has anybody any problem?
Okay, Venla is experiencing some technical difficulties, but we'll come back soon. But in the meantime, we can all go to the governance workshop Miro, and there you will see question 1, who is here, next to the big map. There you will see different dots of different colors representing different sectors, where you can pick your sector and place yourself on the map. And I see Estefania asking NGO sector, like a non-governmental organization. I think you can then, I will create a bullet point for you, a purple one here. So you can do NGO.
Isn't NGO the same as civil society, or what would you say the difference is? Because there's a category for civil society.
Oh, true. Okay, Venla agrees with me. So you can use civil society as NGO. Thank you.
Seems like everybody has found this question, and I'll now finding their place in the map. And let's see. Looks like people are all around the Baltic Sea. There's quite a strong presentation from Sweden this time, as well as some people from Germany. There's no one from Finland. Maybe we should put our own marks as well. So we would be research, I guess. And then the next question on this board is on the left side, and it would be just a second. So in what way is question number 2? In what way is MPA governance, so marine protected areas governance, relevant to you? And then I hope you can again use these different colors of different sectors and bring your post-it notes on the board. And then if you could explain in some way, in what way is the MPA governance relevant to you? And here it's interesting to see the different sectors as well. So research and academia are quite well represented, but there are also other sectors presented. So let's have 30 more seconds to finish this task, and then we can discuss a little bit. Or maybe this is the kind of case we can check through. So MPAs are relevant to me because I want to protect ecosystems and marine resources for my generation and the future generations. So this is a good point. That it's not we are living on a certain time, so we should also think about the generations after us. So it's for work for the future. Governance should provide direction of travel for efforts to protect ecosystems. Yes, so here is again like governance is a subject that sort of sets the table for the implementation and the work. Governance is important to legitimize decision-making processes. Yes, that's true. And I think we should go to the next. Okay.
I have something to say, but Pena, can you please mute yourself?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't realize we can't speak at the same time. So Aina's turn.
Okay, so don't be alarmed that we will go around and redistribute your post-its. We are trying to organize and arrange them in themes so we can get a clearer picture of what sectors in the colors think what is important, but then again see broader themes emerge from this discussion. And if in any point you have something you would like to share by using your voice, because we are not only relying on post-its, please open your mic and shout out. Back to you, Venla.
So yes, thank you, Aino, and well said. Although we work a lot with these post-it notes, it's not like forbidden to raise your voice about something. And at this point, I think we should go to the next question, which is a Slido link. We are trying to, or we will create a word cloud, and I will share a link with you through the chat section. So here it is. If you could go to this through this link to the Slido board and answer the question, which is, what do you perceive as being the goal of marine protection? So that's quite an important question regarding this session. And we'll give you some maybe a minute to fill that question. And I think I can probably everyone's have had some time to put something there. I think is the best way to share the results is to share the screen. So here are the results. And as you can see, conservation, healthy ecosystem, and preserve are the biggest blocks here. And of course, those are the central goals: biodiversity and preserving it, and healthy ecosystems. There's also good points like justice, legal things, and justice, like in the same way as equity. And then resilience, which is of course linked to preserving and conservation. Biodiversity reservoir, yes. And then biodiversity is quite many, and equity is a big theme here as well. Is there any comments you would like to raise in this section?
I think I'll stop sharing now. Just a minute. Yes. And then I think we can go to the next question. And this is like the section called Establishing Common Baseline. And if you go back to Miro again, there is a question number 4. Which is, how would you explain what MPA governance is to someone who has never heard the term before? So this is a question where we try to think what everything MPA governance is for different people. And if you can, again, use these different color-coded, sector-coded post-it notes, so we can see which sector you think you like from your perspective comes from, and which sector you represent. And we'll give you some minutes, and then at the same time, when you're putting those post-it notes, we also we, as facilitators, group the similar input to find themes or similarities in your answers. And let's see, I'll give you 2 more minutes to fill this, fill your post-it notes. Okay, so time is up, and we can look at the screen and see if there's any like certain themes, or sometimes a little bit difficult to try to group these answers. And you can also like take part in this grouping. So if you think that your answer is close to somewhere else, just please put it next to that answer. So let's see. There's a pink note that says structures and processes, rules, norms that shape how MPA works, how actors get involved, influence decision making or made. Is this, Natasha, yours, or this, or whose answer is this one?
Juliette.
Yes. Would you like to share your thoughts about this?
Well, I don't know what to add.
Yeah, it's quite comprehensive answer. It's true, and like already includes quite a lot about the whole subject. Aino's turn to say something. I'll mute myself.
Yeah, I would just want to ask Juliette, that do you think that how are these processes and rules, do you think they work?
Sorry, the question is, how are these processes and how do they work?
Do you think the current governance is good, and how the actors are influenced? Do you think actors are influenced? Actors get to influence enough and are involved enough?
Well, some do. Also, an important thing about governance and about how we as researchers investigate governance is to look at relationships of power. And yes, some actors have a lot of power. But then if the question is, can all the actors get involved as much as everybody else and have a say and have some power over what the decision will be? Well, then in the MPAs I know, no. And there's a clear, I don't know about the Baltic Sea in particular, but in the EU it's been very, very criticized. And actually maybe all the people in the Baltic can tell us a bit more, because I've heard, for example, for Finland or Sweden, that there are some local authorities, like counties authorities, that get involved, and also some individuals, some citizens, because they own, like they are private reserves, so they get to decide much more what's happening there. I'm wondering what do people think about this?
Yeah, is there someone here to comment on the Baltic Sea local governance framework? I myself am not an expert in this. I'm just a dumb facilitator.
I can say some words, Lotta from Sweden. I work both for a county administrative board as well as a national governance. We have worked on a national level together with all the counties, representatives from all the counties, and we have together set up a framework for how to work with protection of the marine values in the Baltic Sea. Because the problem was that previous to this, we all worked with this issue, but we did it in different ways. We used different vocabulary and different strategies how to do it. But now we have like a framework, so we work together, and that also makes it possible to, on a national level, see how is the protection going, what are we protecting today, and what are we missing. And this also is something that makes it more easy for Sweden to report to the EU, for example.
Thank you, Charlotta. Yeah. That's a good segue into the next question, which Venla is going to present to us.
Yes, let's go to the next question. So this is about components for good governance. So what are good components? What are important components, in your opinion, that sort of like create good governance? And here, if you can again use these different color-coded post-its and put these answers on the table. And maybe I'll give you something like 3 minutes time to answer this question, starting now.
And please, can you write individual components of good governance in individual post-its, so it's easier to group them for us and make these larger themes. Thank you.
Yes, and if you have some similar answers, it doesn't matter if they're like many times the same sort of theme or subject on board. It just shows that it's an important component.
I see this as a popular question. There's so many post-its flying around. It's hard to keep up, but keep up the good work. This is very, very interesting information, and we are trying to compile them into some themes, but please, if you see similar answers, please try to group your post-its and help us in that way. Thank you so much.
You still have something like, let's say, 15 seconds time left. So keep it going, but quite quickly if you have something to add. So I think we might start discussing this matter. So we can see there are like some quite strong themes on the board. Well, I can start by noticing that, well, let's start from the top. So fairness, inclusion, empathy, then transparency, all these like social democracy, social themes about equity and also like taking stakeholders, different kind of stakeholders into account and into their decision making. Then there's long-term thinking and long-term perspective, understanding the long-term and short-term goals. They can be contradicted sometimes. So that's one person. And collaboration is a big theme as well. Would you like to continue, Aino?
Yeah, there's a group in the right-hand corner, the participation of relevant stakeholders and the different power dynamics between those stakeholders, and making sure that the different stakeholders are included, like we heard from Charlotte in the previous question, that we create a framework where stakeholders are equitably included. And that also, of course, requires clarity and collaboration and clear goals, which are also important post-its.
Then I would point out also on the left bottom side, there's evidence and knowledge, which are of course like research and research related questions. So that's quite an important theme here as well. And there's a participation of relevant stakeholders, social sustainability, as well as ecological. Those are, of course, linked together as well. Acceptance, of course, like enhances the ecological outcomes. And then goals, having clear and feasible goals are there several times. Okay. We might go to the next question, which is very much linked to this earlier question. So we would ask how can we organize these different components into a governance system? This can be a little bit like challenging question in many ways, like also depends how you understand it. But with these like structures or processes or systems, we mean that you can organize these different components. You can think it as a timeline, or you can think it's as linkages between different components. So there's no limits. Whatever you think is like makes sense to you make it like that. And one thing is that like we act in this task as a group. So it's not like you can make your own systems individually, but if we can work on this together. And Aina has a point as well.
Yeah, just echoing Venla, that I would encourage you to open your mics and using the the components you just described in the post-its and question number 5, drag them over to question number 6, and together organize these. This is like a hive mind exercise. Now, interesting to see how we can organize these components of transparency, consistency, clear goals, stakeholder participation, evidence-based decisions, and everything like that into a structure together.
I would like to point out, and please do not drag the notes to the next board, but if you can copy them so that the structure that is in number 5 would stay like this, and then there's another structure would come in then number 6. Yeah. And this is quite a challenging task. So I think I'll give you 4 or 3 more minutes to work on this.
Just a question, like from whose perspective is this? Because I can imagine like the NGO perspective and the researcher perspective, like how we organize things, it might be quite differently. So it would be hard
Yes.
to share.
Yeah, this can
timeline.
be
Yeah,
totally like very good question. And then of course like people may like emphasize different kind of things. And now people with different views work together. But this is a sort of like exercise that we try on this board. Maybe it's workable, maybe it's not, and Aina continues from here.
Yeah, and yeah, maybe you should take this as like an ideal. How would you want the governance to work, and what would you like to see it? Because we are representing different stakeholders and sectors here, so we make sure that everyone is heard and has a place to say and influence the MPA governance. And I see collaboration, polycentric governance, adaptive management approach being written here. Good governance should provide clear objectives.
Collaboration is there as well on the right bottom corner. There, where is that linked to? And in this point, I would also like to emphasize that if you think collaboration is something that is linked to many different things, for example, I'd say this as an example, there might be other components as well, which are similar. You can duplicate them and put them in several places. So it doesn't have to be just one post-it note for each matter. You can duplicate them and put them everywhere if you want to.
I have a question to the person who wrote like the sharing power with other species in democracy, because I don't really know what that would look like. And it's not really, for me, it's not really how I understand democracy. I understand it as like a human phenomenon that we have in our societies. So I don't know who wrote it, but it would be nice to hear the explanation and maybe your thoughts on the topic.
Yes, sounds like an interesting point. Go ahead, whoever wrote this.
Thank you. I work with an NGO, and we have been practicing more than human government systems for some years, mainly for terrestrial ecosystems. But we've also started to work with marine ecosystems. And basically, this is a kind of system that represents other species and shares rights and shares power. So it is something new and it is something experimental, but I believe it does make sense, and our experience shows that people are very engaged and enthusiastic to not only create new relations, but also to share the power in the ecosystem and use the expertise of other species to create something new in the ecosystem. Also the ecosystem engineering expertise, for example. Thank you.
I noticed, thank you very much. I noticed also one note that says polycentric governance. Whoever wrote this, could you explain more about this? I like what do you mean by this?
Yeah, I wrote that. It's a mode of governance with multiple nodes that share responsibility of the decision making. So it's just that, for example, in many of our nations and state, it's organized with a central government, and then even in regions, authorities are just dependent on the main governing body. So that's that's another way of doing it. And there are researchers trying to explore how we could do that to manage, common goods. But I don't know of concrete examples except for some specific topics at regional scale. But yeah.
Do you think yourself that it would be a more efficient or more effective way of governing? Or does
I
it
don't
make
know.
things more complicated? Yeah.
It probably does make things more complicated, but at least for MPAs, one of the main critique is also that, for example, legal frameworks are made at bigger level, at national or European, and they don't know much about the local context, or sometimes they're made by people that don't have any anchoring in spaces that then they decide for. So I don't know. And I don't know how much we know about this and how much we tried other things.
Yeah. So more local decision making. There's a good point also that good governance should provide infrastructure to store the data collected to able review, auditioning, and effectiveness checks. Whoever wrote this, would you have any comments on this matter?
Yeah, that's pretty much on any kind of governance methods, unless you actually measure it, but and make it the measurement effective. It's just not going to have any impact. We've had, especially in this space, we've had maybe 2 decades of greenwashing, because there were no clear rules, there was no good data, there was no audit trail on green statements. So if you want to preserve marine areas, you need to agree what you should measure it. You should make the data available, and then you can also you can both you can draw the line also what is acceptable, and of course that should move over time when we get better at it. But unless you capture and store that data, you'll never be able to progress or improve over time. It's very difficult to get these things perfect from day one, and perfect is in many cases the enemy of good enough. And let's get started, set some sensible baselines, and store the data so you can basically build on the foundation of that data to improve your the guidelines in the future. But you should set the direction of travel as well, and then all these efforts of thousands of organizations, people around the place, they get it should provide some structure and the way forward.
Yeah. And this is maybe something that couldn't be done on a local level, so it requires resources, and also maybe different stakeholders and can come together and build something like this together.
Yeah, and also we should in this area we should look at other. We shouldn't try to reinvent the wheel too much on this stuff. There's many other industries that have set standards, and those standards have allowed these industries or markets or areas to grow. Financial industries or capital markets are a good example. It's just setting standards on what a financial product is, and having governance around it, how you do things, how you provide evidence of what you've done. That allowed it to scale to trillions of dollars of financial settlements on a daily basis. And the environment is just economically as important as the capital market. So you should really look at best practice on governance, control, regulators, and participants, and say, okay, let's use what we've done to manage money, and now we're going to manage nature using those things. And you can even borrow infrastructure that exists in those areas. You don't have to come up with just very specific new things. There's so many things that have been done already for in the last 150 years. We should, steal with pride is always a good concept in this area.
Yes. Yes, and Aina has a point.
Just to let you know that Juliet put a link on polycentric governance in the chat, and there's a question from Nora about how is the situation today concerning infrastructure to store data? Is it not being done at all by governing bodies, and how can we progress this? Is there a data expert here who could answer? I can answer from a HELCOM side and a Baltic scale that data is being collected, but it's not being collected in a methodical way. So concerning like regional analysis, all the different Baltic Sea countries have a different sort of data that is difficult to harmonize, but maybe we can improve on that. But all other views are also welcome if you have any comments about data related to governance.
I think the digital twin ocean concept is actually quite useful. And in the morning session on the remote sensing, those things came up as well. That there's cupboards and cupboards full of very hard data obtained the hard way. People physically going out there, taking samples, spending a lot of money on analytics, and it's just a pile of paper, unavailable to anybody. And that's I think that's one of maybe the biggest mistakes we made in this area, to not to have some kind of, well, in this case the Baltic data warehouse, or just a marine data warehouse where people can submit the detail level. And now we have AI and those kind of things. If you have 200,000 analytical reports on water quality over a 20-year time series, that's 10 minutes work for the AI engine to consume all that stuff, and it's now sitting in a cupboard.
Yes,
and that's so that's where I think the digital ocean thing is a good stuff, and there should be maybe an effort to dig up all that old data, and that's where governance could come in. That somebody or that local central authorities just steps up, saying, okay, hey guys, we're going to build this Baltic data warehouse or a marine data warehouse, and where you can store this stuff.
Yes, and that would also benefit then the governance itself, because we can't make informed decisions without the information, aka data.
Exactly. So you can show the developments that have led to deterioration. So you can actually specifically ban or say measure this type of metric to make sure that your marine protected area is protected from it, or you're improving that particular metric, because we've seen that it's either a precursor for restoration or it's a precursor for collapse. But let's say that there's a lot of data in there, but when you do research and you read the papers, you can get the tables, and you would really, really, really like to have the underlying data to do your own thing with it.
Yes, I can see that people have also pointed out to these that there's not really, like, in ecologic sense, there's no borders between countries, and therefore like this transboundary collaboration is of course like if you think about the Baltic Sea ecosystem, it's essential and that the countries interact. Actually, I think this seems, although this was quite a challenging task, I think that there is a structure to be seen, and people seem to agree on many matters. We could go, therefore, to the next question. What is, like, in an imaginary world, at what stage or what component, with what component would you like to take part in the protection governance process? What do you think, which component or which step in the system would be like the one where you would like to participate? And we have these like voting stickers, color-coded voting stickers. Again, if you can use them and point to different notes here. And let's say this takes like 1.5 minutes, maybe.
Ella, can I ask, are you allowed to vote for multiple stickers or just one?
I think so. We can allow this as well. So if you think there are like let's say three the most important for you personally, so then it's also like maybe shows more effectively which matches people think are important ones. So 3 votes per each person. And I can see there are some votes that are not very near to the note, to any note. So if you could just put them as close as possible to the post-it note, so that we know which belongs where. They're sometimes a bit difficult to move. You can just like click them and then use the Control X or Control C or Control V function if there's difficulties to move them around. But I think we can already start looking at the board. So is there a clear signs where there would be, which would be very popular in this matter? So there are quite many votes. For example, this co-management committees and polycentric governance. So this local matters matter. So this is, and co-management, local stakeholders, and decision making, including the local partners, is important. Or people think it's in an ideal world, they would like to make this happen. How about you, Aino?
Yeah, I see a lot of votes in the collaboration post-it, which I wonder if people would like to comment. Is this collaboration between countries, like transboundary cooperation, or cooperation between local and like governmental institutions? Or what kind of collaboration were you specifically thinking of when you voted for this one? If anyone would like to say.
I voted for high and low, wide and broad. I mean, between different countries, between different interests in the society.
Yes, I guess collaboration is important everywhere.
quite many notes on these matters, like analyzing and setting protection objectives, and these kind of matters. So and this infrastructure to store the data collected. So these like research information and monitoring and like getting information about the outcomes, and also after defining these targets, then following the progress through time. Would anybody like to comment on these matters? Knowledge about protection and biological data. Is there anybody who would like to raise something about this matter?
I would like to make one short remark about collaboration, because I think even if we're not very used to this anymore or have never been, but it is possible to collaborate with other species by making contracts on what should happen and by really sharing power. And I think this is also a question of the narrative, because protecting something is an autocratic narrative. We are protecting something, but creating a just and equitable and democratic society together is something else than protecting something. And this is a process we should also not look at only at the protected areas, but at all areas, and really ask the question, how can we create a multi-species society and leave this narrative of protecting or destructing? Because this is something fundamentally different, and it's a very relevant question for governance, I find. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a question in the chat. Juliet is asking, can you give us examples of what you mean by contracts?
Well, a contract is basically something that is the result of diplomacy and a way to put relations into something fixed. And this is something that, for example, if you work with species ambassadors, people representing the interest of species, not like scientists, but somebody who is really trying to represent the interests of the species, you can make a contract with persons like that. And this has happened with many indigenous peoples around the world, that they made contracts, for example, with species that they used to make their livelihood with. And this contract had very concrete obligations on both sides, feeding each other, but caring for each other. And this is a political process, and we can also use our democratic tools for this process. But this is just one example. We could also make a contract with a collective in an ecosystem, but it is also possible bilateral with one species, for example.
Thank you. Very many interesting points, and these boards are something that we will like look into and in the future as well, with more time. But now I think we could move on to the next questions. This section would be like about scoping improve governance. And in this section, we would then think, we would point out to different strengths and weaknesses in the current MPA system and governance. And this is something where you can like choose your like viewpoint. I would say that maybe your answers would come from your perspective, what governance is you feel is the nearest viewpoint to you? And I think you can choose this perspective here, and then after that we would go then to think more about these issues and how things could improve from the current thing. And please use again the color-coded post-it notes. And first we will start with the strength, or many people are already like working on both of these matters. So on the left side there's the strengths, and on the right side the weaknesses. So I think you can work on these both matters at the same time. And let's say we work on this 3 more minutes. We as facilitators try to group these answers again, but if you want to, it would be great if you could join us in this grouping, and if you see any similarities, any themes in others' answers, or if you find that your answer is close to somebody else's, please group them together so it's easier to find these different kind of views, and if there's any like clear point like themes in these matters. So our time is up for like posting, but of course you can continue if you have a point that you want to add here. But we can start discussing these views. Let's start with strengths. That's like from positive starting point. So I saw here an answer. It says when MPAs have a dissociated governance, and then I can't see somebody's governing body, for example, it's already a success. So whoever wrote this, could you explain this more? What do you mean by this? Juliette?
Yeah, I meant just a governing body, because some MPAs don't, or they're managed by the ministry, for example, and there's no local governing body only dedicated to that MPA, or there's only one body managing all the MPAs of one region, for example.
Yes, so there's more resources for actually governing the MPA than like somebody's really like making decisions and taking care of the governing. There's a point also that climate change awareness has sort of opened more maybe discussions for like biodiversity issues as well. And then Aino has a point.
Yeah, I think many more and more people are aware of the importance of nature and nature values, and I would like to highlight the bottom corner of this strengths table about the cooperation and frameworks and co-management and common goal. That I don't know who wrote this potentially common goal note, but are you referencing to like a transboundary goal, like in the Baltic Sea region, or some local and governmental common goal?
Do we have the... Sorry, I was more thinking of the fact that the governance is there to govern a marine protected area. So the protection is part of the system per se. So there is a potentially common goal. How that goal is understood, how protection is understood, it can be interpreted differently by different stakeholders. But at least you have an objective with setting up the governance system in place, which saves a certain amount of time on discussing what is the purpose of the governance. But then the interpretation of what protection means, it can take quite a long time. But at least you have a good starting point.
Yes. Somebody has written here the framework that is being implemented in Sweden. So what is meant by this? Which framework does this writer of this note mean?
That's a framework I said a few sentences about in Sweden. Well, it wasn't me who wrote the note, but that's what I mentioned earlier. It's a framework for setting up a network of well-managed marine protected areas in Sweden. It's something we've been working with together with the counties for the last couple of years in Sweden.
Yes. Then there's also a couple of notes about this bottom-up approach, that the top-down approach is not enough and it's not maybe effective if everything is sort of dictated from above. And I think we can move on to the weaknesses, which are, of course, very interesting aspect in this matter. There is some grouping of the themes. Yes, Aina has a point here.
Yeah, just noticing poor participation, lack of true and legitimate participatory approaches, and then again political opposition, because many people feel excluded from a protection program, and I think poor participation and political opposition will go together, and I think this is a big problem. And then I see that in this big green post, someone has written that we don't have a common framework for our common work in the Baltic, which contradicts some of the cooperation points made in the strength part. But this is we have many views, and maybe different parts of the framework are good and different parts of them are weak.
I see there's also a note that says many MPAs don't have an individual governance system, e.g. no committee. So there are MPAs that are not actively managed. Or did I understand this, the meaning of this note correctly? Could the writer of this note comment on this matter? So the note was many MPAs don't have an individual governance system, e.g.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
But that's very related to what I was mentioning just before. So I don't know what to add.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's
good.
the two-sided.
Yeah. And then there's a note that says sector fragmented governance and management. Could the writer of this note explain this matter a bit more?
That was me, based on experience from a marine protected area that I'm close to in Norway, that it's suffering from sectorial laws that still prevail the management in the marine protected area, and that are conflicting, non-coherent with the law that establishes the marine protected area and the objectives in that law. And one law is the Fisheries Resources Law, that is at the national level, and that it requires a big reform in law making to actually be able to be coherent with marine protection and conservation objectives, or there needs to be some other kind of mechanism to accommodate for both the Fisheries Law and the Marine Protection Act that establishes the protected area.
Important point here. The legal framework perspective and these different systems that don't really like work together efficiently.
Can I add something on this?
Yes.
Yeah, in several states, it's also regional, like they are regional authorities. I don't know how it is in Norway, like in Belgium or in Spain. It's the regional authority that can have a competency over fisheries, for example, and then the state that have the competency for environmental matters. So sometimes it's like more complicated, but it might also foster the collaboration that we were talking about. In Belgium, when they designated some of their Natura 2000 MPAs, then they had to work with the regions, and it got much bigger than they thought it would be just to designate the sites, because they had to involve the regions, and then the regions got more people involved, including more sectors. So then, I mean, Belgium MPAs have really low protection levels. They almost have no regulations at all, but still that happened.
Then, like on the bottom part of this board, there's a comment. Today, we don't have a definition of how an optimal protected networks of marine areas would look like. What shall it contain and how much? Would the writer of this note comment more about this matter?
That's me. Yeah, it's I think we need to define better what we are aiming to protect. If we shall get a common one working network together, what shall we protect and what can we contribute to build up this functional network, and how do we incorporate connection? I mean, the exchange of genes between the different areas.
Yes. So you mean ecological connection?
Yeah.
Yes. And I know you have a point here.
Yeah, just I would just like to promote Protect Baltic project, where we are researching these different things like connectivity and coherence of the total Baltic Sea MPA network, and then we are gonna analyze and prioritize and give recommendations of the expansion of the MPA network in a regional level. So we hope to provide some like concrete suggestions to reach these targets based on data that we hope to be able to harmonize on a Baltic-wide scale. But these are very ambitious goals of the Protect Baltic, but we would be really hoping to achieve them and provide this information for the countries to be able to expand their MPA network.
Sounds fantastic.
Then on the left side of this board, quite at the bottom, there's these commercial and economic aspects, like that. It says here commercial activities ignoring the ecosystem as a whole, and that capitalistic and neoliberalism values driving decision, and MPA being used for commercial purposes. So sort of a short-term or individualistic economic aspects, maybe like sort of setting the tone of protection efforts or like
Yeah,
interfering?
much of that is related to, say, the maybe the earliest systems for marine protection related to things like cod fishing. Only after we exterminated a couple of these species that people start to realize that unlimited fishing actually didn't work. But of course, all the early stage MPA systems were really targeted. Okay, how can we restore some cod, maybe the sole, a few key commercial species, and the rest could basically get lost. And you still see that in a lot of the operational fishery regulations, that now there's restrictions on how many fish fishers can bring on board, but it only means that they just throw away everything that is not commercial. So they kill 20 fish for every commercial fish they actually bring on land, and so there's some effort, but it just focuses on a narrow thing. How can we get as many cod, herring, and mackerel in the sea, and the rest is almost optional or can be maybe sacrificed to achieve that objective. And something similar is happening in the bottom trawling fishing, that certain techniques that could be more environmentally friendly and that don't disrupt the bottom as much have been killed off by competing fishers that didn't have that technology, and so they protected their market share by getting that method banned. There's kind of people are actually starting to abuse the protection rules to make sure that they can keep on fishing as much as they can.
So short-term thinking and not enough regulations. And maybe at this point we can also like advertise that we are also like trying to bring up more these ecosystem services that are like economist perspective, that are not maybe commercialized or are not like as market prices, like for example, fisheries can of course like show their profits and things like that, but there are also like economic points that can be that are not in the markets but are still like in the long term very sort of like important and actually foundation of well-being in the society. Would you like to?
I think you also see similar things happening in that certain type of fishery is creating some kind of monoculture in the water. So there's one that species grows very well, but then you kill the kind of the breeding grounds for many other species. So it's, let's say, unless you take that broader ecosystem view, you really have to be careful or it's very easy to, let's say, commercial interests run away with this law in hand and just do what they want, or take a very narrow objective and use that for their benefit.
And Aino has a point here as well.
Yeah, just to mention again, promote Protect Baltic, that we have a work package on ecosystem services, and we are developing methods for the valuation of different ecosystem services, and hope to bring this valuation and ecosystem-based management and ecosystem-based thinking into broader policy making and governance. So that's again an ambitious goal, but we hope to achieve it. Thanks.
We're going to stay with this subject a little bit longer, but this number 9 question is linked to the previous board. And in this task, we would ask you to give your opinion, like what is the strongest strength and weakest weakness? So meaning that what matters would you emphasize in these, like you can vote again, and let's say have 3 votes on each, like both for the strengths and the weaknesses. So maybe we can see like if there's some very like emphasized matters here on this board. And let's say that we take like maybe 2 minutes with this matter. So let's see how it looks here on the board. Let's start from the strengths again. So I can see there's one note that is quite strongly comes from there. Willingness for cooperation, reaching good protection of the Baltic Sea. So basically, there's people think that it's important to cooperate, and people think it's important that we would reach the good protection. And Aino comes next.
Yeah, I would like to ask from those who voted for this cooperation to maybe name some things that have increased this cooperation and the good protection and good cooperation towards the protection of the Baltic Sea. Do you find that there is any one thing that has affected in it, or is it a result of many different things?
Yeah, I think the organizations such as HELCOM can help in cooperation, and then of course in better protection of MPAs. So I think it's very good to have a special structure that facilitates cooperation, such as HELCOM, but also nationally.
Yes, thank you. And we hope to encourage this kind of framework and cooperation in the future as well. Ella?
And yes, this note that quite on the top, that when MPAs have a dedicated governance, it's already a success. So good governing is way to the great outcomes and success. I think we can move on to the weaknesses. And there comes like right away on top, the sector fragmented governance and management, often siloed from other policies and institutions. So sector fragmentation is one quite an important point. And also another one, this poor participation, top-down approach, maybe not meaning, well, maybe somebody can point out this matter. What kind of things do you mean in this theme? Like, what are the weaknesses and so on?
I would like to say that this is one of the big problems with this whole nature protection narrative, that a lot of so-called ordinary people that have relations, but these relations are and the development that these relations took are now connected to the world market, and now everybody finds out this is ecologically disastrous. But if you just cut off people from their ecological relations, then they feel this is something from top down, and this is the process we are experiencing right now with the right-wing parties' rise. So I feel that it is necessary for these protection regimes to also show perspectives for people to base their livelihood on ecosystem relations that are more sustainable or in any way better or just, but not just cut off the ecological relations like fishing or whatever, and not provide new visions. It's happening with these programs, as you probably know, with these marine guardians, or what is it called? Marine, if fishermen become sort of more I'm missing the word now, protecting the sea in a way, or some fishermen bring people to funerals at the sea, but it is a difference if you just protect something or don't go into it, or if you base a new form of livelihood with your, and I think this is the aspect here to this social inclusion of people.
Yes, good point. So still collaboration is needed from top down, more collaboration between local and governing bodies to truly achieve effective marine protection. I would like to point out here the votes, some votes for we don't have a common framework for our common work to protect the Baltic, and today we don't have a definition of how an optimal protected network of marine areas would look like. And those are the weakest weaknesses, which again is a funny contrast between the strongest strengths of cooperation we saw on the Baltic Sea. So there is definitely room for improvement within the Baltic Sea and in the HELCOM concerning marine protected areas and creating this common framework. And again, I would like to promote Protect Baltic, that in the governance workshop we are building a common strategy and using the HELCOM platform of the member states around the Baltic Sea to get these common strategies and goals adopted into the national plans. So again, an ambitious goal, but we are working to get there. Thanks.
Thank you for interesting answers. And now we go to the final question, which is number 10. If there were no restrictions, how would you improve MPA governance? And here you can go wild. Here there's no limitations. Don't think about all the real world restrictions. And this is, of course, how would we find solutions to these challenges? So here I would say let's work on this for the next 3 minutes. Here I just add that you can pick up on the weaknesses and gaps that we have noticed in the last question number 9, but also if you have something new unrelated to them, you can bring that up as well. And I think we can have a little bit more time with this, maybe yes. So I'll let you know when there's 1 minute left. You can start to look at the answers. So I can see there's notes about it says here on the note, complete knowledge of what exists underneath the surface in the Baltic Sea, and next to it, periodic evaluation, learning outcomes. I'm not sure about the meaning of this periodic evaluation. I think maybe it's like about the MPA performance. More like, would the writer of the note maybe explain this a little bit more? What is meant by periodic evaluation and learning outcomes? Is it attached to the MBA management, or what is meant by this periodic evaluation and learning outcomes?
Sorry, Estefania, we can't hear you for some reason. No, sorry. You can write it in the chat.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Meanwhile, maybe we can go to this. There's another slide that, another note that came next to this complete knowledge that exists. So more research and collect more evidence, spillover effects and species specific information. So more measuring, more data, more knowledge, things like that. Somebody would like to discuss this a bit more or explain these notes?
Hi. So I wrote about the species-specific information, and it was more about, again, the knowledge and the data collection to really understand the effectiveness of MPA that could link to adaptive management and better governance. Thank you.
Yeah, so nothing, we can't measure the management or governance if there's no data to show what is happening in the sea. Aino, would you like to point out something?
Yeah, I see Estefania wrote in the chat about the periodic evaluation that as a part of an adaptive management process, more regular review of how the governance process is taking into consideration all the components of MPAs. And yeah, there can be no development and improvement if we don't assess periodically how we are doing. That's true of governance, but also true of ecological function of the Baltic Sea, and if what we are doing in MPAs and in governance is actually helping. I would like to also point out in the Miro board theme that is arising, what that people would wish for in a perfect world, to make a democratic system and aim for community-led approaches on governance and a holistic approach and cooperation on different levels of governing process to be very effective and transparent. And this is, I think, a big take-home message that we should all strive to make a more democratic and more cooperative MPA governance structure.
Also a blue note here on the left side that each MPA has its own managing body. Whoever wrote this, could you maybe explain this a bit more?
Yeah, I wrote this because I remember myself the discussion we had before, that it would be very good to have possibility to manage all MPAs in a good way. So maybe that would be very useful to have a managing body for each MPA, just to improve this process.
Absolutely. And then there was a mention about more resources. So maybe these two are also linked, that there should be more resources for like managing the actual MPAs. So not to have paper parks and so on. I think we have a bit of a time limitation in this workshop, and there's also like in this conference there's going to be a plenary about all the sessions. So I think we have to move on, but we are absolutely going to take a deeper look at these boards also afterwards. This conference together with the project group, and we will then summarize it later and send all the participants also. And now I would like to I've shared a link in the chat to another Slido question that's now on, and the question is, how do you feel after this workshop? Hopefully you can find it. If there's somebody who hasn't found this link, it's come from me, Venla Alaharja, and I can share it once more here in the chat. And so that's the last question concerning the workshop. This is like a customer feedback from you. So how you feel about this? And I think we can say like 15 more seconds to fill this up. I think we can now look at it, how it looks like. So somebody's tired, but there's 3 smileys as well, more informed. That's encouraging. We can do this together, like intrigued, interested, inspired. Weird, but okay. Curious. Yes, very good feedback here. Thank you very much. And now I think it's good to go to the matters that are like following this session. So after this, there will be a plenary where we are going to summarize these outcomes from these sessions, both the on-site and online session. And there will be like 3 questions, which are like, first one, what is governance? Second one, strengths, weaknesses, and then the third one, solutions. And these matters we're going to handle in this plenary session, and we are going to try to summarize these answers from these both online and on-site, and put them together and try to answer this question. And Aino, do you have something to say here in the end?
Yeah, just that first you will have a coffee break of half an hour, and the plenary will start at 5 Eastern European time and 4 Central European time. So you will find that back on the main stage. But thank you from my side for this workshop and all your interesting and very innovative participation. And we hope that you want to stay in touch with Protect Baltic. There will be a survey later on sent to you where you can indicate how you would like to be informed of our project. And yes, thank you. Venla, maybe last words.
We also hope that you will not only like follow us, but also collaborate with us as stakeholders. So we welcome all kinds of input, whatever is possible. And thank you again. And this has been a very interesting 2 hours and went very fast. So that's a good sign. That's a good sign. Thank you again. And hopefully you follow us in the future as well. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.